Yeah, I see toggle screen sharing. Yes. Do you want me to see? No, turn on my camera. uh, so you want me to see if I can share my screen? All right. Are you seeing my presentation? Are you seeing? You're seeing my screen? All right. She's changing. Yeah. All right. I will stop sharing then. Okay, I should be good to go. All right. Okay. All right. All right.
That's my focus area. I've done a lot of work over the past 10 years with youth empowerment and capacity building. Recently, very recently, as in this month, won a National Youth Award for Leadership and Advocacy, Trinidad and Tobago. So that's something that I'm very proud of. I'm here because I believe very strongly in the power of Caribbean youth to chart the path forward, chart the way forward in this climate crisis. I think every day I wake up and I don't see enough young people understanding that this is their future, understanding that this is something that they need to be invested in, or even feeling empowered enough to think that they can make a difference. So I'm always very happy to show up in these spaces and to bring as many people along with me as I can. One interesting thing about me is that for the 26 years that I've been on this earth, I have been trying to learn how to whistle and I can't. I was not born with the ability.
Hi everyone, I'm Connor Childs from the gorgeous Cayman Islands, and I love coming to conferences like this because, like you said, the youth are the next generation. Are going to be the ones to we are going to be the ones to mitigate climate change the best way we can. And I also love to see what other Caribbean islands in this region are doing to mitigate climate change. So hopefully I can bring some of those ideas, sorry, back to Cayman and try to fit them to our topography or to fit them to our landscape so it works for us. And one interesting fact about me, I love to surf and freedive.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Myrico Morris. I am from Barbados. Myrico. Yeah, my mother was possessive, so it's MY. Yeah, Myrico. I came here because I am a community activist, community leader, and climate activist. So I really just came to network and help put my hand to the plow. Because at the end of it, although we continuously hear the rhetoric about Barbados and smaller and developing states being disproportionately affected by climate change, I think just hearing about it or having my Prime Minister go all over the world and champion that cause, I think we as Barbadian youth also have to get behind that and assist with the momentum. One interesting thing about me, I actually am an opera singer. Break one glass. What do you think?
Go ahead. Yes, please go. Knock us off. We allow you to do your serenade up for like a hot minute. Then we're going to pause the introductions so we can go to the panel and then we're going to do That's good. So, all right, you got like 30 seconds. Give us the best that you got. Or an option.
Why did I have to say that? I know, right? Su navi per mare che io lo so, no, non esistono più. Con te vivrò, con te partirò. Are you happy?
That's interesting. I didn't realize I could be so happy. Thank you. All right. So if you are on the panel, please take the stage. Who's the moderator for this? Wonderful. All right. It's your show. Yeah.
Hello? You hear now? Alright guys, apologies for the extreme late start. Yeah, apologies for the extreme late start. But we're trying to get through this as quickly as possible because we have another session right after this. So, welcome to the Biodiversity and Oceans panel. We have a very diverse group of people speaking with us today. So first we're going to have Lázaro. He is a member of the International Youth Climate Delegate Program, who is also a forestry engineering graduate and currently works with one of the national parks located in Cuba. So please give a warm welcome to Lázaro, please.
Ok. 1, 2, 3, sí. Listo. Bueno, mi nombre es Lázaro. Vengo desde la tierra donde se produce el mejor tabaco del mundo.
His name is Lázaro. He comes from the land where the better tobacco of the world is produced.
Y les traigo una presentación para que vean los efectos del cambio climático en mi reserva de biosfera, península de Guanacabibes.
And he brings us a presentation so we are able to see the effects on climate change in the reserves of Cuba. The one that you can see, well, it's not. So first of all, I'm apologizing because I'm not a translator, neither an interpreter. I just speak Spanish and English, and I discovered I have to do this like 5 minutes ago. So I will try my best.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, bueno, de acá vengo, vivo en la parte más occidental de Cuba.
He's from there. He lives in the most occidental part of Cuba.
Que es una reserva de biosfera declarada por la UNESCO en el año 1987.
That is a biodiversity reserve declared by the UNESCO in the 1987.
Y dentro de la reserva de biosfera tenemos un parque nacional del cual soy especialista ambiental.
And inside this reserve they have a national park in which he is an specialist.
Bueno, dentro de los ecosistemas predominantes que tenemos en el área,
inside the predominant, most important ecosystems they have in the area,
podemos decir que Guanacabibes tiene bosques semideciduos.
They can say that Guanacabibe has
semideciduous forest.
Semideciduous forest.
Okay, is the forest. Okay.
And specific
tenemos todo el litoral sur de la península, playas de blancas arenas y arrecifes de corales.
They also have of the south littoral coral reefs and white sand beaches.
Y por el norte tenemos, todo está cubierto por manglares, por las 4 especies de mangles que hay en la región del Caribe.
And the north is all covered by mangroves, with the 4 main species of mangroves that are in the Caribbean region.
Algunos elementos muy singulares del área, tenemos arrecifes muy bien conservados, de hecho uno de los más conservados que tiene la región del Caribe.
One of the most important elements is that they have really good preserved coral reefs, specifically one of the best preserved one on the Caribbean region.
Es sitio para la anidación de 3 especies de tortugas marinas.
It's place for the born of marine nest of marine turtles.
Ajá. También es un sitio activo, corredor de aves migratorias.
Also is a corridor for migratory species, migratory birds.
Y un sitio muy importante para la reproducción de especies de interés comercial.
And also a really important place for the reproduction of commercial interest species.
Ahora, uno de los primeros elementos que vimos e identificamos en nuestra región,
one of the first elements they saw and identified in the region,
es el comportamiento expansivo e invasor de algunas especies nativas.
Is the increasive and expansive behavior of some native species.
Esto viene asociado a eventos propios del clima, o sea, penetración del mar.
That's related due to climate change events, for example, the increase in ocean coverage in the land.
Estas 2 especies que se ven acá, que son propias de la costa arenosa.
Those two species that you can see there are are native from that sandy shore.
En los últimos años se han comportado de manera expansiva, cubriendo todas las playas.
In the recent decades, in the recent years, has been expanding and covering areas that they were not supposed to.
Estas playas coinciden con la anidación de las tortugas marinas.
These beaches are the same than the ones the marine turtles nest.
Y la vegetación al cubrir las áreas produce un impacto negativo a la hora de las tortugas marinas hacer sus nidos.
And this vegetation damage and produce a negative impact for the turtles in order to be able to have their properly nests.
También hace aproximadamente 15 años
Also 15 years ago,
detectamos esta especie que es el exótica invasora.
they detected that the species, that this one is not native, is exotic.
Aquí en Barbados la he visto en la jardinería de los hoteles.
He has seen it in Barbados in the hotels.
Esta especie puede llegar a ser muy competitiva con las especies nativas del área.
This species can become really competitive against other species, native species on the area.
Y también forma parte del complejo de vegetación que entorpece la anidación de las tortugas marinas.
And also is responsible of the part of vegetation that is dangerous for the turtle nests.
En Guanacavive uno de los principales renglones económicos es la apicultura.
In Guanacavive, apiculture like
Beekeeping.
is one of the main economic resources.
Y tanto las personas que llevan muchos años trabajando en la apicultura como los rendimientos de miel.
Both people that works in beekeeping and also honey, like honey.
Rendimiento.
Sí, honey production, yeah.
Se ha notado el cambio en la etapa de floración de muchas de las plantas que las abejas utilizan.
You can see the change of growing and time the bees that you like, the flowers that the bees need are growing.
Esto trae un problema que tanto las personas no saben dónde van a llevar las colmenas.
This creates a problem because people don't know where to establish the beekeeping processes.
Y las abejas también pierden un poco su orientación.
And they affect also the bees, the one that are not able to orientate it properly.
En ese gráfico se muestra ya algunas de las especies de interés para la producción de miel.
On those graphics you can see some of the species that are interest for the bee production.
Cómo se ha cambiado de etapa, o sea, de meses en la floración.
How they have changed the moment of the year when they do this production due to these changes on the flowers and on the vegetation.
Obviamente es evidencia del cambio climático, ¿no?
And obviously is related to climate change.
También tenemos, al ser una isla, Cuba es una isla y nosotros que estamos en la parte más occidental, la parte más estrecha de Cuba, tenemos la intrusión de la cuña salina en nuestros suelos.
Cuba being an island, and specifically they that are in the most occidental part of the island have a problem, and is the entrance of the salty water inside the land.
Hemos perdido parte de las playas.
They have lost part of the beaches.
El incremento del mar ha aumentado, el aumento en nivel.
Due to the rising ocean surface.
Tenemos franjas de vegetación completamente muerta, producto de la salinización del suelo.
They have part of the vegetation that has died and have been completely affected due to this increase in the ocean and salty water coverage.
Guanacavives es el sitio más idóneo para que nos afecten los huracanes.
Guanacavive is also really sensitive to the hurricane season.
Porque los huracanes vienen a tomar el canal de Yucatán.
Because hurricanes come through the Yucatan Canal.
Y entonces, en los últimos años se ha notado el incremento tanto de la categoría de los huracanes como la frecuencia de afectación.
So in the recent years, it was possible to see that the hurricanes have increased in category and in like the period time they are coming.
Esto trae consigo las afectaciones de los huracanes trae consigo directamente afectaciones en los ecosistemas de la península.
Hurricanes affect directly to the ecosystem of the region,
sobre todo donde más afecta en la vegetación,
specifically for the vegetation,
donde mueren muchos árboles,
where many trees die,
ramas partidas,
broken parts of the trees,
salinización del suelo producto de la penetración del mar,
extremely salinization, salt increase in the floor's substrate,
y a la vez consigo esta afectación en la vegetación trae afectaciones directas en la fauna.
And also this affectation of the vegetation implies an affectation on the fauna, on the animals.
Ya que tenemos muchos animales que se alimentan netamente de plantas.
Since they have a lot of animals that their main food source are these crops.
Entonces ocurre que migran a otras zonas.
So they must move to another areas.
También pierden un poco la orientación.
Also, again, they lose orientation.
Y bueno, un total disturbio a modo general.
So bad.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. It's very important for us to understand how climate change impacts biodiversity, and it was very interesting of a presentation. We're going to move on to our virtual attendee, who is Dr. Julian Walcott. He's a highly motivated, self-driven scientist with a passion for conservation. He is currently the technical officer for a regional protected areas and biodiversity program called the Caribbean Protected Areas Gateway. So he'll be virtually attending with us. If you could just...
Oh, I see. Okay, so these will be distributed. Okay, so, and are they great? Great. more people with us. Let us continue the introductions. So maybe you want to come this way just because I think they can see. Oh, they can see. Oh, well, this is where you see that. You watch my seat. Perfect. Okay. Go ahead.
So I'm Koulen. I'm from Spain, but I live and work in the Guyana Republic. I'm here in the Guyana Republic. I'm another friend like in marine blue technology and I'm working at Biodiversity and Barbadian like the blue field. I'm really fascinated about marine science and I'm here today because I want to do that scientific field and collaborating cooperate with the private industry. I also work for a company called Tobago. We are trying to solve the sargassum, the seaweed crisis that is affecting the whole Caribbean. And one special thing about me is that in the past 3 years I have really been following Spain, France, Mexico, and others.
¿Qué? Bueno, ya presentar. Ajá.
¿Por qué vienes? ¿Cuál es tu motivación?
My motivation is about sí, por favor. Me interesa mucho el intercambio de experiencias.
He's really interested about the experience exchange.
Aunque pase un poco trabajo con el inglés, voy a presentar
He has some difficulties with English, but he's always wanted to ask.
y llevar las experiencias de ustedes a
And he also wants to bring your experience to his country.
y algo interesante de mí, me encanta bailar.
And also something interesting about him is that he loves to dance.
Hi everyone, my name is Lauren. I'm from Freeport Grand Bahama in the Bahamas, and I'm very excited to be here and to be part of the team that's brought this all together. I've been working on the communication side, so I'm very passionate about communications as a field, specifically climate communications and how we can talk about the environment for the public and various stakeholders, as well to get people engaged in climate action. And I study sustainable development, so that's what my background is in, specifically how we can bring underrepresented perspectives into global convenings and really get people passionate about action. So that's why I'm here. I'm excited that we have so many different countries represented, so many different perspectives. And the thing that I'm most passionate about is also exchange of ideas, creating spaces for dialogue and conversations to learn from each other, to grow with each other, and really making a safe space where we can all feel very comfortable to talk about things and exchange ideas. And something interesting about me is within my communications field, I have a platform called the Eco Justice Project that's all about finding creative ways to talk about climate. So I post poetry, different articles, posts, as well as artwork, as well that young people from around the world are creating to talk about climate in their respective countries.
All right, thank you so much. And I just wanted to say a big hello to everyone who is with us in Circle. We really appreciate that you are showing up, that you're tuning in from whichever island in the Caribbean or other part of the world that you may be joining us with. And thank you so much, of course, for your patience as we are flowing through our technology hurdles, because that sometimes happens. So what we're doing here is we're just doing a round of introductions. Everyone, we've asked everyone their name, where they're from, why they chose to show up into the space and join our community, and then also something interesting. I'm creating the exact same discussion thread in the Circle group, so if you want to drop your comments there. We'd also love to learn about you, even though you're not physically in the room. You are still part of this community. We are one community virtually in person, all together, one Caribbean massive. So thank you. We're going to continue to pass it on. And then once we get the technology sorted, we'll be able to sort of see some of your faces as well. So thank you for your patience, and please do drop those messages. I'm going to make that post right now. Ishi. Thank you. Oh, you started? I think I started, yeah, in the discussion.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abigail Ellis. I am representing the beautiful Tri-Island state, Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. Of course, the Isle of Spice, where everything is, of course, very nice. Why am I here? I am here because I believe that youthfulness is synonymous with innovation. And like my role model has said at the UNGA 78, is that we cannot continue to give lip service to climate change when climate change is showing us every day what it's capable of. And the leaders of today want to make decisions for us to not be around to feel the consequences of tomorrow. So I firmly believe that youth should have a platform, not only where they can speak, but also start to drum up ideas for action. We can leave here and, like, unlike our leaders, we can do things in our country and find that which is unique to us and address these issues. I am a youth parliamentarian in our country, Carriacou Youth Ambassador, a youth advocate, and an aspiring environmentalist. Yeah. So we do a lot of work in the blue economy. In Grenada, I do a lot of work when it comes to climate change back home. I'm a research officer for the Prime Minister, 25 years of age, and I love what I do. An interesting fact about me es nací en Venezuela, pero yo crecí en Canadá, entonces yo puedo hablar español. So where I live in Grenada. I was born in Venezuela in El Poquito. I grew up there for some time, and then I migrated to Grenada. My dad is African. My grandparents are actually from Barbados, so I'm very multicultural. Currently living in Cuba. And yeah, this is Abigail in a nutmeg shell. That's it.
Hi, I'm Walter Tucker. I am totally an outsider, and I'm the old person in this group. I'm the old person in this group, and so I'm here because Nikita told me to be, and I'm also helping to facilitate some of the deliberative dialogues that you all are going to be engaging in. I'm a university professor y profesora de español. But my substantive, what links with this is I also represent the university as part of the American Democracy Project, and I'm the director of the American Corner at the University of the Bahamas, where we manage the partnership between the university and the U.S. Embassy. So I'm excited about seeing how the methodology of deliberative dialogue applies. This will be the first sort of international engagement with regard to the region. And so I would love to see and learn just how this works for engaging for like this or like these, and then talk to the rest of the U.S. about why it's absolutely wonderful and why it underpins democratic engagement in all fields. So very excited about this, and I love coffee.
Okay. So we'll.
Ooh.
There's an echo because somebody has on there.
The drink, because I'm married.
So we're going to welcome our panel, our next panelist, because I think our tech situation is solved, and then go from there. So.
I want to make sure that we can hear.
Just turn on his mic.
So I think, I'm trying to, I thought we were ready to begin our panel speaker, but I think they're still doing sound checks. So for everyone on Circle, thank you so much for your patience with us. We couldn't just use Zoom. It would be a platform that everyone's super familiar with. So there is a learning curve for our team in figuring out how to use the Circle platform. But I think those of you who are on Circle do see that it's a bit more dynamic than just having a Zoom room. So that's why we wanted the platform. So hopefully we will figure out the kinks of how we operate Zoom today. And hey, Kristen, look at my students showed up. Nice to see you. I'm just seeing the names of some of the people showing up in our space. So with that, we will hopefully be able to get to our next speaker. But if not, what we will do, are we good to go? Okay, if you can hear me, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We hear you, we just need louder. Oh, it's coming through the projector. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Testing. Any better?
We hear you, we just need to just volume down our space.
Okay. Okay.
Julian, can we get you to just introduce yourself, your name, where you're calling in from, why you're showing up into this space, and then one thing interesting about yourself?
Okay, so my name is Julian Walcott. I am from Barbados. Unfortunately, not able to join you in person. In terms of the conference, I was invited by Alyssa, who thought that I would be, a good candidate since I work at the Caribbean Protected Areas Gateway with the work that we do. So it's good to be here. And something interesting about me, I am a scuba diver, and that gives me the opportunity to experience a lot of our marine biodiversity, our corals, our fish, sponges. So I would say that is one interesting fact about me.
Okay. Julian, you can continue to perform for the big echo there, and I'm going to deal with that, but continue to send your presentation.
All the other mics are on.
Oh.
Sorry, I didn't fully catch that.
Probably laptop.
Is that laptop connected to the audio?
Tell him to go ahead.
Tell him go ahead. Tell Julian to talk.
Okay, so I should start?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Julian.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So good afternoon again. First of all, I just want to say it's a pleasure to be here at this regional conference of youth for climate change. As was mentioned, the youth are in fact a very important part of the solution and the way forward. They will be the ones ushering us into the future. And you should be able to see by my screen that we at the Caribbean Protected Areas Gateway also see ourselves as being part of the solution. So my presentation today, I would just give you a very brief introduction to who and what the Caribbean Protected Areas Gateway, or CPAG, is, quickly look at the importance of our marine environment, look at the concept of marine protected areas, and then finish up by looking at the role that CPAG actually plays with respect to biodiversity and to the combating of climate change. So CPAG is an initiative of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific Group of States, which is funded through the European Union. And they recognize the wealth of biodiversity that's held within these three regions. And so they created the Biodiversity and Protected Areas Management Program, or the BioPAMA program. They then recognize that each of these regions are distinct in their geographies, their political makeup, the issues that they face, and therefore each region would require a regional observatory or hub. And so the regional hub for the Caribbean region is the Caribbean Protected Areas Gateway. It is a resource and information hub which focuses on biodiversity, natural resource management, protected and conserved areas. It is hosted by the University of the West Indies and is actually housed in Barbados at the Cave Hill campus at the Center for Resource Management and Environmental Studies. And we work very closely with our two implementing partners, IUCN, the regional office in Ormat, and the European Commission Joint Research Center. Because of the overall ACP umbrella, we work with the 15 ACP countries in the region, which can be seen here with the blue exclusive economic zones. And our overall objective basically is to improve the long-term conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity and natural resources by allowing practitioners and stakeholders to be able to better monitor, to be able to better track, to be able to build capacity and allow for overall improved management and governance. And so we sit on 4 pillars, which are data, capacity enhancement, collaboration, and communications. Now, to find out more about us, you can connect with us. We have various social media pages, as seen here: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, and we also have a web space, a web platform. So you can visit us at www.cpi.org to learn more about the work that we're doing. Now, I think we're all aware that the Caribbean has been identified as a biodiversity hotspot, given the levels of biodiversity and species and the high levels of endemism that we see. The marine space within the wider Caribbean region accounts for over 9 million kilometers squared. It therefore is a huge reservoir of biodiversity that we depend on for various reasons. The persons of the small island developing states within the Caribbean derive their livelihoods from the marine environment, whether it be fishing, whether it be diving, sailing, and the offshoot occupations such as boat building, restaurants, and the like. So it provides livelihoods for billions of people, and it's also crucial for global food security. We in the region rely heavily on fish and marine products for our food and for our security. And of course, we are aware of the role that the marine environment plays with respect to climate change. So having seagrass beds, coral reefs, mangroves, and phytoplankton acting as major carbon sinks, helping to remove large amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. The role of the marine environment is also seen in the blue economy and the various ocean sectors that are out there that allow for countries to be able to thrive and be able to support their existence. Now, in this table, it just gives you a breakdown of some of the ocean services, which are very varied, from the provision of food, from the provision of non-living resources like energy. We use it for transport, tourism, recreation, coastal protection, carbon sequestration. And I just wanted to point out that in 2012, they identified a value of $407 billion US dollars attributed to what we actually achieve from the ocean. So our oceans are very valuable to us within the Caribbean region. Unfortunately, we know that there are many threats affecting them, as can see here in these 5 broad categories. Our water quality is deteriorating. We are over exploiting our natural resources. There's physical damage. There is climate change, sargassum influxes, sea level rise, and the like. And of course, there is the movement of alien species which tend to become invasive. Now, these threats therefore warrant the need for protection, and one of the primary ways that we do this is through marine protected areas. So this map shows you the marine protected areas within the Caribbean and the wider Caribbean region. We have over 750 marine protected areas, which only account for roughly 16.5% of our marine space. It speaks to the fact that a lot of our marine space still needs to be protected. And as you would see from the map, a lot of the protection is naturally near shore or within exclusive economic zones, and a lot of the high seas remains unprotected. And these are things that we need to definitely look at. Now, studies have shown that MPAs are the cornerstone of the blue economy. They help to allow for fisheries and agriculture, coastal and marine tourism, transport, and also for marine energy. Studies have also shown the impacts that MPAs can have on fisheries and acting as a safe haven, allowing for the spillover effect to be able to replenish depleted areas within our nearshore environments. We also see that they act as climate change combatants. So as I said, having healthy seagrass beds, having healthy coral reefs, having healthy mangroves, which we can achieve protection, obviously can help to aid in the fight against climate change. But what is really needed for these MPAs to be successful? We need data that's accurate, up to date, salient, and pertinent. We need the development of the capacities of the practitioners and stakeholders throughout the region to be able to utilize the data and implement the various initiatives. No man is an island, so we really need to build on collaborations and partnerships, and we also need to communicate a lot better what we're doing, what we're finding, lessons learned, solutions, and best practices. And so this is where CPI, the role that we see that we play, because each of these pillars we've recognized has been more or less an issue. So we try to work towards helping countries to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, now the new Global Biodiversity Framework, by bringing together data into a central platform and being able to transform that data into more meaningful value-added products. We recognize in the Caribbean, the value of data is not recognized. And so a lot of data is not shared, is hoarded. And these are one of the things that we're trying to work on. So we have a myriad of tools that are there, catered to technical and non-technical persons to allow them to be able to transform data to allow for better decision making and policy formulation. We also believe in the enhancements of capacity. So here are just a few examples of some of the engagements that we've had. We've had a Trainer of Trainers program with the Caribbean Marine Protected Area Management Network to build competency in marine protected area management. And one of the areas that we've really focused on is protected area management effectiveness. It's one thing to have a protected area MPA established, but unless you are assessing the effectiveness of the management of it, you can run yourself into just having paper parks. And so we had a regional workshop followed by a number of national workshops to allow for the assessment of various protected areas throughout the region. We also believe in collaborations, So we had a regional data workshop in Barbados in 2019. We brought practitioners and stakeholders from each of the 15 Caribbean countries to improve their knowledge on data. And we also more recently created a directory of experts. We recognize there's a need to link persons with knowledge with persons in need of knowledge, not just scientific knowledge, but also recognize the importance of local and indigenous knowledge. So that's something that you can have a look at. And then finally, we recognize the importance of communication. So just this month, earlier this month, we released our e-newsletter. So here you can see Antigua and Barbuda recently designated a new protected area on the island of Redonda, one of the now largest protected areas in the Eastern Caribbean. So we try to share information and happenings, but more importantly, we try to communicate data better. We recognize that this is one of the areas where we tend to fall down in the region. There's a divide between the scientists, the conservationists, and those making the decisions. And so we're really working on our platform to try to transform data and information into more meaningful visuals, utilizing stoplight systems, utilizing dashboard type graphics and interactive maps to allow for easier assimilation of the information. And then finally, one of the things that we also do is we try to create products that can be easily utilized by decision makers. So here, for example, we created a report card stemming from one of the protected area management effectiveness assessments that sets out the information in a quite easy and palatable way, allowing for a decision maker to be able to see where to go next. And I think these are the key ways that we, the Caribbean Protected Areas Gateway, are trying to improve the conservation of biodiversity and help with the combating of climate change throughout the region. So this is just showing you the breakdown. It is an Excel file which we took and we created these elements to make it much more easier to understand. So with that, I would like to thank you and I welcome any questions which you may have. Thank you. Okay, I am not hearing on my end if anything is being said, unfortunately.
Can you hear me, Julian?
Very low.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. It's great work that you are doing with CPAG, and we look forward to hearing more things from you. But moving swiftly along, we're going to have Khadija Stuart. Khadija Stuart is a young, enthusiastic environmentalist from Trinidad and Tobago. She hosts a podcast called Eco Vibes and is a Caribbean regional representative for the Sustainable Ocean Alliance. She will also be online.
Hi, everyone. Testing. Can you hear me?
Hi, Alicia. So we're having technical difficulties with Khadija, so we're gonna just move on to you, so you can start sharing your screen and unmute and introduce yourself.
Me? Just want to test that out. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I kind of want to see first if everybody's hearing me before I start. So I'm just gonna see in the chat if anybody's hearing me, if everybody's hearing me. Okay, good. All right. So let me share my screen. All right, before I get started, my name is Alisha Koulen, and I am hailing from the country of Guyana. I am currently an operations manager for a nonprofit organization. It's called STEMGuyana, and the focus predominantly is bringing tech education to the Guyanese youths. My background, however, is in the environmental sciences. I've done my master's and undergrad in, say, environmental science. And I am also one of the International Youth Climate Delegate that will be attending pre-COP in a week from now, and also attending RCOY and COP28 later on in November and December. I just want to give you a quick presentation on the impacts of climate change on biodiversity loss in Guyana. So a quick profile on Guyana. Most of you already know it's the sole English-speaking country in South America. We're also culturally attached to the Caribbean, and predominantly most of our land area is forests. It's covered and untouched and unexplored. 85% of it is forested, undiscovered, unexplored, untouched, basically. And because of this, our country is home to, we call it the biodiversity hotspot. It's home to a rich biodiversity, natural heritage, and so on. And our biodiversity, our diversity covers ecosystem, genetic diversity, species diversity, and so on. Guyana is home to an extensive primary tropical forest. We have freshwater and other distinctive ecosystem. But we usually categorize Guyana into 4 natural regions to explain it easier. We have the coastal plain, the hilly sand and clay region, the interior savanna, and the forested highland. And all the names speaks for themselves. The coastal plain will be the areas or those places close to the coastal region. The hilly sand and clay region is exactly that. The interior savanna is the savannas. And then we have the forested highlands, which is more mountainous. So in all these different natural regions, we have diverse biodiversity. So I want to talk about our species diversity. We have extensive range of biological diversity between plants and animal. We have including endemic species and threatened species. And if you could see in the photo, I put some of the more popular ones. We're home to some of the giants, like the giant antita, the giant river otter. We have the golden rocket frog that is only found at the Kaitro Falls in Guyana. We have the black caiman, we have the harpy eagle, and those are just some of the giants that we have in Guyana. We also have the arapaima, which is the world's largest freshwater fish as well, residing here in Guyana. So our country's biodiversity consists of over 8,000 species of plants and approximately 1,800 known species of mammals, reptiles, and amphibians. The reason why it's known is because it's still counting. Yearly, we have more scientists coming to do research in our forests, in our rainforest. There's so much more that's undiscovered. So we obviously don't know exactly how many, but this is as much as we know. I think this figure was taken from the 2020 report, one of the 2020 report. We also have endemic species of plants and 6 to 9 IUCN threatened species in Guyana as well. Now, as we all know, climate change is on the rise. It's affecting all the small island developing states. And even though small island states contribute relatively low greenhouse gas emission, it still affects, or they're still on the forefront of the effects of climate change. And Guyana is no different. These developing countries are exposed to a variety of long-term danger, and Guyana is also vulnerable to climate change because we are already experiencing severe floods and drought. We have other impacts like sea level rise, changing precipitation patterns, increased temperature, and extreme weather events. Currently, we're going through the effects of El Nino. It's very, very hot over here. And as a result, I had a bit of runaround just to come online because the power outage has been because of the extreme heat. The population has been requiring more power, and so electricity has become a thing where it's going on and off around Guyana for the past weeks. So that's just one thing. So sea level rise, most of the time, well, the coastal plain, the population that reside on the coastal plain is below sea level. The coastal plain is below sea level. And as you can see in the first picture, the only thing that we have against high tides or to protect those communities on the coastal plain or the coastal region is the seawall. We call that the seawall. And if you look at the picture clearly, you can see it's not really doing a very good job because the water still get over it. And this usually leads to flooding. The coastal plain is predominantly where most of the population work and reside. And so as we can see, if there is an increase in sea level rise, it's projected that by 2050, the entire coastal region will be gone. We'll have to transition and move the capital to some other part, and most of the persons will have to move to higher land just because that area is extremely low. And if there's intense rainfall or if there's high tides, most of those communities are flooded. And so, you know, that is just an impact there. And this could cause habitat loss. We could have saltwater intrusion, of course, because, you know, we have freshwater ecosystem and a lot of fishes and marine organisms that depend on the freshwater. And then you have saltwater coming in, so that disrupts that entire ecosystem. I wanted to show the increased temperature that Guyana has been experiencing over the years. Between 2010 to 2020, it's showing significant progression. And you could see clearly in the first graph, between 2010 to 2020, that is probably some of the most high or highest temperatures so far. And I think it has been increasing. So we probably need more data to show, but I'm pretty sure that that temperature has increased significantly by now, by 2023. So we've been experiencing elevated temperature over the years and kind of expecting it to keep elevating a bit more if we don't take action right now. I wanted to also show the change in precipitation in Guyana. If you look at the graph, you can see that overall there's been changes over the years, significant changes in precipitation, and all of this can combine to really affect all the ecosystems that depend on it for services and all our rich biodiversity and so on. So these impacts include things like plant and animal species. Of course, you have plants and animals that can survive in too high temperatures, and then you have some that can survive in intense rainfall. And this really can disrupt the food chain. And also, you know, persons who depend on certain animals and plant species for their livelihood or for food, it really disrupts that as well. And the shifting plant communities, that again speaks for itself. Some plants will grow really well, but then you have flooding, and when you have flooding, the rice fields and all these different areas, it's very hard. It puts a lot of pressure on the population, because then things becomes really expensive. Things are no longer available. It becomes very pressuring, especially for those persons in the interland community. It changes the pattern of migratory birds. They have seasonal migratory time, and that completely offsets that and can also result in population decline as well. And then, of course, you know, with intense rainfall, you can have habitat loss or alteration, because, of course, if you have the drying of the wetlands, then you're disrupting the marine organisms there. They are no longer able to populate, reproduce, breed, and so on in those areas. And, of course, if you have too much rainfall, then that also disrupts the ecosystem there. And generally, these extreme weather events, temperature changes, and all these things, it really just weakens all the ecosystems, their health and their resilience, to really provide basic provisions for the population. And I just want to keep stressing for the natives or the Amerindians, because they mostly depend on some of these ecosystems, predominantly that are in the hinterland regions of Guyana. When we say hinterlands, we mean like really far away from the capital city. They predominantly depend on biodiversity to survive. And so these climate change effects, or these impacts their livelihood and their way of life. So our biodiversity, as I mentioned, just to close, it's important for regulation of poverty, provision of fresh water, economic development, areas such as forestry, agriculture, fisheries, community-based economies, and so on. And they talk about the interland communities and so on. So any loss of biodiversity and disruption to the ecosystem definitely impacts the economy, and more importantly, the Amerindians and the interland communities. And as of recent, climate change has been receiving greater recognition as one of the main drivers of environmental change here in Guyana and threats to our biodiversity. And it has been increasing over the years. So how do we combat this? What are some things that we can do to combat it? We need more mitigation and adaptation strategies. We need more habitat protection. We currently have protected areas, but we definitely need to put more work, more effort, more finances into these protection areas. We need to do more research and monitoring, like Mr. Walcott said earlier. You can't do anything if you don't have data. You have to get baseline data. You have to know what you're doing, how to go about. You need more research to be done, more monitoring, and this comes with finance and investment into these. We have to have sustainable land use practices. We've just recently had our oil and gas industry, and all of those pose threats. We need to figure out how to monitor that industry and regulate what's going on there, so it doesn't have adverse effect on us, on our population, on the biodiversity. There's the importance of technology sharing amongst Caribbean countries, regional countries. There's a need for innovation. We need to present more opportunities to young people so they can go and equip themselves with the knowledge to be able to come up with creative ways to solve the problem, come up with creative technological ways to solve problem. And these are all rooted in just presenting opportunities to young people, maybe to go study more and so on. And that falls right on the education and awareness as well. We need to educate more persons about it, about what the effects of climate change are, advocate and so on for climate action. And of course, capacity building is never something that we can run out of. And at the end, I just wanted to say that we need to also ensure that youths are at the forefront of everything that we do and involve them in climate action, climate policies, and so on, because they're the one who are going to be the future, who are going to benefit from it, who's going to benefit from the sustainability of how we treat our environment. And so we need to ensure that we include them in all these different processes. And thank you so much for listening. I'm going to open the floor for if you have any questions for me.
Worked out the kinks for Khadija. So, Khadija, can you unmute yourself, please?
Are we good? You hear me?
Okay. Awesome.
All right, let me share my screen and get the show on the road. All right, so hi everyone. My name is Khadija Stuart. I am the Caribbean Regional Representative at Sustainable Ocean Alliance, and I'm also the founder of an organization called EcoVibes Environmental Creatives. And I'm here to talk to you today about deep sea mining and everything that we've been doing to hashtag defend the deep, right? And we just heard about climate change and its impacts and stuff in the region and whatnot. And something that is being advertised as a climate solution is deep sea mining, which is definitely not true. And we will jump into that. So now the deep sea is the area below the ocean surface, 200 meters and beyond, right? And unfortunately, we know less about 5% of the deep sea has been studied, and we know more about the moon than the deep sea, which is wild because the moon is so far away and we're so close to the ocean and connected to it, but there's still so much that we don't know. And also because it is the deep ocean, life forms there over millions and millions of years. It is very dark, very limited light. So you have all these creatures developing all these adaptive strategies and stuff to be able to survive in cold and dark conditions, etc. And the biggest thing about the deep sea and why deep sea mining is so not wanted is that the deep sea plays a crucial role in acting as our carbon sink and storing about 37 billion tons of carbon yearly. So what exactly is deep sea mining, right? It is the process of excavating and often mineral deposits, like polymetallic nodules, polymetallic sulfides, and cobalt-rich ferromanganese crust from the deep sea bed at ocean depths greater than 200 meters. Now, the polymetallic nodules, they are a source for nickel, cobalt, copper, and manganese. The polymetallic sulfides, you get copper, lead, zinc, gold, and silver. And the cobalt-rich crust, you will get copper, vanadium, platinum, tellurium, etc. So all these metals exist within the deep ocean, and the idea is that to drive the green revolution right now, so to support electric vehicles, to support your cars, well, I just said electric vehicles, hear me, your cars. I mean your phones, your televisions, etc. That we need more of these metals. And we know right now that land mining is a serious issue, with all the different environmental impacts surrounding that. And now the idea is, well, we're running out and we need more. So let's go to the deep ocean for it. And again, it is definitely not true. We do not need these metals to drive a green revolution, but that is the narrative that is being pushed. And we have been working very hard to debunk it. I have a short video to show you all what exactly the industry looks like. I hope it plays well. If not, we just
All
jump
right.
back.
Do you guys want to do a little swap?
Sorry about the ad.
Just like a one.
Can't do anything about that.
I was talking about switching up teams.
It needs to hurry up and finish.
Of course. Whose turn is it anyway?
Tyler's, apparently.
But I do love a good Snickers, so.
The basic picture of a deep sea mining operation, more specifically a nodule mining operation, will involve a surface operation vessel. From that will be deployed a collector vehicle that will be down at 4,000 meters, and it will be tethered to the surface operation vessel. Mining of nodules will produce two different types of plumes. One is a sediment plume created by the vehicle removing the top 10 to 15 centimeters of the seabed. We call that a collector plume. It will drive around and pick up the nodules. And they'll be pumped back up a riser pipe to the surface vessel. The second type of plume is a discharge plume, which is unwanted sediment that is brought up to the surface vessel. It is unwanted, unneeded, and so would be returned to the ocean. The question is whether that's returned as a plume in the mid-water column or back down in the deep ocean.
All right, so that is just a quick idea of what, just a visual representation of what deep sea mining is supposed to look like. And where exactly it's supposed to take place right now is an area called the Clarion-Clipperton Zone in between Mexico, Hawaii, and the Pacific Islands. And I don't know if you could see like these different blocks here. Those are contracts that are given out to sponsored states to be able to, you know, explore those areas. And fun fact, Jamaica actually has a contract. So that's something that we need to be looking out for because Jamaica is a sponsoring state. And this is just an image of what the polymetallic nodules look like in the Clarion-Clipperton zone. They're literally like potatoes, but potatoes filled with minerals that people want to go and bring up to the surface to use, like I said, for things like phones, batteries, but it is very much not needed. And I don't know if you saw clearly in the picture that what will happen is that like heavy machinery will just drag along the ocean floor and pick these things up, and that brings us to the impacts. There's no way like a robot with an arm would go down and pick these things up one by one to not destroy ecosystems. You know, so the biggest impact would be the destruction of ecosystems and species, as a lot of them would be, removing the polymetallic nodules also, like a lot of it is supportive of life. So by removing that, you're removing a whole habitat and so much more, as well as the destruction of the function of the deep sea. Like I mentioned down there is very much dark, etc. The chemical composition is so specific and it has taken millions of years to form. And by removing the nodules or anything of that nature, you're going to be altering the function of the area as well as its ability to absorb carbon, because in the beginning I did mention that it is the biggest carbon sink that we have. In the video earlier, you saw the things where they'll be releasing the sediment plumes, and that is when essentially you pick up all the material from the deep ocean floor, you collect the nodules, and then everything that you don't need, you put back into the ocean at different water levels that have already set chemical composition. So you're going and you alter that. And we've already seen in the Caribbean what happens when the chemical composition of our waters are altered. The sargassum plumes that are everywhere, right? So we don't know what will happen with that, and we don't want to find out what's going to happen if you start altering the chemical composition. Things like light and sound pollution, as well as disruption of the fisheries study. There was a study that the fisheries industry. There's a study that just came out that said, the tuna industry will be heavily impacted by those same sediment plumes that will be released. And the region is very much dependent on fisheries. And you might be saying, but Khadija, you said that this is going to be happening in Mexico, Hawaii, and the Pacific. So that's not something we should be worried about. But I always want people to remember that it is one ocean. It is all connected. The ocean does not know borders and boundaries like we as humans do. So we can't say that it's happening over there, it's not going to affect us. That is definitely not the case. And the last thing is the social and financial implications. The industry right now, the financial benefits of it is none, basically. And you have people wanting to invest in it and then ending up going bankrupt, which was the case with Papua New Guinea. And they right now have a debt of over 100 and something million because they invested in the industry. Some people decided to go out and start explorations. It didn't work out, and then they just left the country with that debt and so much other social issues that followed. And who regulates deep sea mining? I'm sorry if it seems like I'm rushing. I'm trying to get through. This is a very intense topic, and I'm trying to get through it as fast as possible within the time slot that I have. But deep sea mining is basically regulated by the International Seabed Authority. And when we talk about it in the presentation and everything that I've been giving, it is the areas beyond national jurisdiction. So this is not in national waters. This is essentially in the high seas, right? And the International Seabed Authority is an autonomous organization established by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which is UNCLOS, to organize, regulate, and control seabed mining on behalf of humankind. And the problem with this is that the same body that is responsible for developing the rules and regulations, etc., is the same body that has to make sure that those rules and regulations are in place, and as well as they're the same body responsible for protecting the deep sea. So you could see right there that their mandate is very much conflicting, and it raises a lot of problems because as it stands right now, the secretariat at the ISA is very much pro-mining, and they're pushing that agenda very hard. And yeah, there's so much more, but I'll move on, right? And right now, as it stands, the scientific community, as well as Sustainable Ocean Alliance Caribbean and so many other organizations, banks, companies like Samsung, like Tesla, etc., they're all calling for a moratorium on deep sea mining. And the idea is that we need to invest in scientific research. There's so much about the deep sea that we absolutely have no clue about. So they're saying that we need more time to understand the species, to understand how things work properly down there. And this is a case where we need the precautionary principle to be front and center, to shine, to be the star of the show. Finally, we're already experiencing the impacts of climate change and all other environmental problems. And this is the first time we have the opportunity to stop an industry before it starts or properly regulate that industry, but we're hoping not to have to do that, right? And we need to preserve the climate benefits of the ocean. The ocean is our biggest ally against climate change. And also the International Seabed Authority, like I mentioned, they have a plethora of issues, but they really need to work on being transparent and really working on their decision-making processes. Thus far, we have several countries that have come out and said no to deep sea mining. So last year, I remember when I first attended the meeting, the idea of a moratorium or a precautionary pause or saying no to deep sea mining was so far-fetched that plenty of people was not entertaining it. But Fiji, Palau, and Samoa, they were very much brave. They came out and it was like, no, we absolutely do not need this industry right now, etc. And then as time progressed, we had more countries joining the call for a precautionary pause. And the only country in the Caribbean that is on that bandwagon is Dominican Republic. So we need more Caribbean countries to join, to show up. And here we just stop deep sea mining, say no to it. We definitely don't need it. Like you see in the picture, it's not worth the risk. This is me at the meetings in July, and the next meeting at the ISA is coming up in 2 weeks' time, where they would continue to deliberate the industry. And the reason the industry is being pushed so much right now is because Nauru, a state in the Pacific, they triggered what is called the 2-year rule. And this is something underneath UNCLOS that stated that rules and regulations behind deep sea mining, aka the mining code, needed to be completed so that they could apply for license to go ahead and start deep sea mining. And that 2-year rule ended in July this year. So there was a lot of attention on it, people raising awareness, speaking out against it. And there was a small win in that no mining code was adopted, but there is still a possibility, that they could still apply, etc. And one thing I would love for people to take away from this is to really look into the topic. It's like for the longest while, it's been sliding under the radar. People have not been giving it much attention, but the decisions are being made right here in our region. So it's so important that we pay attention to it, as well as Caribbean states are not present in the room. And these meetings, the assembly meeting is open to all the countries that has ratified UNCLOS, which is 168 countries. And basically in the room, we only ever have Trinidad and Jamaica. And that's because they are council members, but we need the rest of countries to show up and really speak out on the industry. And as our social media person for SOA Caribbean like to say, we're already in a triple planetary crisis, and we definitely don't need to add a next industry to that. We're all about protecting the ocean, protecting our climate, and our ability to enjoy and benefit from all the services that the ocean provides to us and to all the marine species as well. So stop deep sea mining. And that's it for me.
The last time I saw Khadija, we were at the UN Ocean Conference in Portugal, crossing paths, and got really excited because we were like, Caribbean massive! And we had a moment in the halls, which is what it's all about, right? Is like, how do we connect with each other in person so we can advance this work? I learned so much during that session, and I feel like I have to rewatch it because deep sea mining is definitely not an area that I am well enough versed in, but I definitely know it's something that we need to not be doing. So thank you so much for that enlightening conversation and for educating us, informing us, and just sort of giving us a status of really where we are as a region as it relates to the progress, the opportunities, the real challenges, and just also the positionality of our various regions in this work. So that was amazing. Thank you so much. We are super tight on time, so we actually are not going to have time for questions and answers right now. So please, though, we do have the discussion board. This is why we have the Circle platform. So please, let's take the conversation to Circle. Khadija, maybe even as it relates to deep sea mining, and same with all our other panelists. I'd love for you to either pose questions to us to reflect on, or just prompts that can help to begin conversation and drive conversation. I know there's the space there already. So also everyone else who's just in the space, please also ask your questions, because the more that we talk, the more that we interact, the more that we're going to understand as it relates. So we're going to take a very brief pause, like 15 minutes, no more. Go get some coffee. We have a coffee break outside. You're going to go outside and around. It's just out of there, but you have to walk out the long way. And then when we come back, we were going to dive into our deliberative dialogue. So this is something that we have to do in tandem with our team online and our team in the room. So that means people in the room, we have to honor the time. All right, so let's be back at 3:30. Online people, we will see you in about 15-ish minutes. And I look forward to diving deep. And then we're going to explore what deliberative dialogues are and how it's going to support us in moving through some of these really challenging conversations. Thank you. Enjoy your break, and I'll see you soon.